You're listening to The Resilient Animal. I'm Annie Peterson, Doctor of Education with a Master's in Mental Health Recovery and Trauma-Informed Care. This podcast is an exploration of how helping other living beings can benefit mental health and what makes us all resilient animals. In this conversation, I speak with Michael Overlie, founder of the group Dogs and Men. Michael and I discuss the intersection of community building, emotional literacy, and the human-animal bond. Michael details his efforts in creating an online community for men and how they connect over their shared experiences with dogs, providing them with a platform to address their emotional needs and improve their overall well-being. I want to welcome Michael Overlie to the Resilient Animal podcast. And Michael is going to talk with us about his background in working with people and animals and a little bit more about dogs and men. So thank you, Michael, for being here. Can you just start by telling us a little bit more about what led you to where you are right now?
Thank you. I'm still trying to figure out the who I am part. For most of my life, I tried to be who I thought I was supposed to be, who everyone else told me I needed to be. And that changed for me drastically. March 18th, 2018? 2017, sorry. When my older brother died, he was my hero. He was like the one guy in my life I could count on. And when he left, I crumbled, went into deep grief. And but it turns out it was the best gift I ever received. So I was able to see myself in this whole other way and realize that I had to be responsible for me, like 100%. No one could make me happy. No one could make me feel loved. No one could make me do anything I didn't want to do on the other side of that.
Right.
So I've been on this incredible journey. And at the time, I had this amazing dog, Darby, who he's like, okay, you're ready. Now, he was like my Yoda. He's like, now your training begins. And he just started showing me all these things that I wasn't able to see. He'd always been showing me, all my dogs had. But I was awake enough to notice that there's a whole other way to live your life. And so that sent me down this crazy path. And I started looking back at my other dogs since I was a kid. Like, well, what did this dog do? What did that dog do? What did I get from it and not fully receive? My dog Sage kept me alive when I was 12. After my dad left the family, I was feeling suicidal. And if it wasn't for that dog, I don't know if we'd be talking.
Yeah, it's really interesting how people, go into working with animals and animal welfare quite often because of something very profound that happened with them. And I just want to go back really quickly. How did Darby get into your life?
So I was living in this little cabin in the mountains southwest of Denver. And the landlord knew I wanted a dog. And he's like, just get a dog, man. It's okay. You can have a dog here. No problem. So I was finally looking. I was working for this medical device company at the time. So I was either home or on a plane. But I really wanted another dog in my life. And it was like 2 a.m. and I saw this link to an article about a dog fighting ring. And there was one dog nobody was adopting. And I clicked on it and I'm like, oh, there he is. That's him. It was like love at first sight. Wow. And I saw this chewed up little pit bull mix and I reached out to the people and they were awake too. It was like 3 a.m. I got an email response.
Wow.
They brought him over the next day and he's like, hey, I've been waiting for you.
Oh, so you and Darby had an instant connection and you just knew you should be together.
Yeah, I can't explain it any more than that. It was just as natural, like, oh, there's my dog.
Yeah,
that's him.
Yeah. Well, and it's just like with people too, sometimes you feel that with people and then we're fortunate to feel that with animals too.
Well, he helped me get this amazing woman that's been in my life for the last few years. I was teaching Qigong in the park during COVID when everybody was losing their minds. I'm like, okay, what can I do to help? So I started a meetup and anyway, so these people showed up and she was one of them. And that first day he was in the truck with me. I just let them out, and next thing you know, they were just loving on each other. And then she kept coming back.
Okay.
And before you know it, you'll love this part. Before you know it, no one else was showing up, and it was just her.
Oh my goodness. And I'm sorry, you said it's qigong. Can you explain that a little bit more?
Oh yeah, qigong. So people are more familiar with Tai Chi. Um, Tai Chi is about 800 years old. Qigong is the predecessor to that, and that's about 2,000 years old. It's a healing art. It can be considered a martial art, but it's not for fighting. It's for learning how to basically heal yourself and move energy through your body.
Okay. Okay. So how did Sage support you during that time?
Oh, he was magical, and I later understood more about this, but he could sense. He didn't even have to be in the same part of the house as me, but he would sense when my energy had shifted.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I was feeling super sad or depressed or whatever, and he would find me. He would come seek me out. At times, just sit in the room with me.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes lean into me. Sometimes like literally hold me.
Wow.
He was way more in tune with what I needed than I was.
Wow. Wow. So you have had these animals in your life, and they've definitely had a profound impact. And so then what made you decide that, working with animals and people, this is really working for me? These experiences have really created an impact on my life, and I want to share this with others.
Oh, great
Mhm.
question. It's funny because originally when I started getting more and more into this and learning more about energy medicine, and I thought I was going to be, the guy who saved all the animals, right? I wanted,
Yeah.
I wanted to, cure cancer in dogs because it's like what 50% now or something
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
I was going to do all these things, and then something stopped me cold. I mean, I started a pet nutrition business. I'm a certified pet food nutritionist. Was doing all these things, and I'm like, no, the dogs are okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's the people that need the help.
Mm-hmm.
And I shifted. I totally shifted, and now I've got a focus that includes the dogs, but is more on the man learning to heal and create the life that he's been seeking instead of the one that he was forced into by himself and others.
Right. Right. And what are some of the biggest challenges, I'm going to use for lack of a better word, that men are needing to deal with in terms of becoming who they are, who they want to be?
The biggest problem is the way we're raised.
Yes.
For most of us, won't ask for help. We would rather die, be run over, maimed, mauled by a bear,
Mm-hmm.
than admit we can't do something ourselves. And it's absolutely ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first thing. For guys who are a little more awake and aware, it's a level of willingness. It's like, I know I need help, and I know I'm going to ask for it someday, but can I be vulnerable enough, right? That's kind of like next level, is being vulnerable. And vulnerable has a bad rap. It doesn't mean a sign of weakness. Um, Vulnerability is actually a superpower.
Yeah.
But again, we've been taught, don't let them see you hurt. Don't show this. Don't show that. You can't have these emotions. You stuff it down, rub some dirt on it, get up off the ground. I'll give you something to cry about. There's a million of them, and that each one of those just continues to shut us down more and more. So it's getting past the fear of doing something else. And I think we're more afraid of how powerful we actually are than we are of how weak we think we are.
And so and you work with a lot of military too, is that correct? Or
Well, it's kind of a mix.
okay.
So I have a thing for, I'll call them the rescuers.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually part of a book I'm writing. It's called Rescuing the Rescuers.
Okay.
And it's police, fire, military, the guys who are going to jump in front of a bullet, run into a burning building. It could be also nurses, doctors, those people who are they're giving it, right? They're giving
Right.
it, and they don't even maybe know why they're doing this,
Mm-hmm.
and they're not taking care of themselves along the way.
Right.
So there's a hurt 3-year-old Johnny in there who's willing to jump into a burning building because he's trying to save someone else because no one saved him.
Right. Right. Oh, wow. How do you incorporate animals into when you are working with people? What is that relationship like between the person and the animal?
Ooh, that's it. That's it right there. You said it for me. It's that relationship.
Hmm.
So guys have a tendency to bond deeply with their dogs for the most part,
Mm.
in a way that they can't even with, say, their parents or spouse or partners. There's there's no expectation in a dog except for Indigo staring at me and huffing because she wants to go outside. there's no
Well, if you
there's
need
no
to take a break
judgment.
and do that, because I had to take a break to
Oh no,
remove my bird.
no, she's fine. She's a Belgian Shepherd, and she can look imposing at times. But it's there's no judgment. You know, they don't care if you have any hair or a big belly, what kind of car you drive. There's just it's like all the expectations of all the other relationships in your life fall away. And this is actually the place where guys can be vulnerable. They can, they can baby talk their dog. They get home from work and they're pissed at Ed in accounting or whatever, and they go, oh, that freaking guy, but they can vent and unload to the dog, and they know that the dog's not going to give them advice. The dog's just going to hold space for them, even if they don't realize that's what's going on. So that relationship it's the key. It's the door to that man's heart is open further than it is in probably most of his other relationships.
Wow. So do you find that because dogs have been in humans' lives for, tens of thousands of years, but are there other animals that you feel that people can really connect with and heal with other than dogs?
Absolutely.
Hmm.
Dogs are just my preference because I enjoy them so much, and I think you can do so much with them. And I incorporate that too. But I've seen amazing relationships. Like you've got an African gray.
Hmm.
I've seen amazing relationships with parrots, parakeets, and cats. I coached a guy in the Middle East. He reached out to me. He goes, "I don't have a dog, but I've got a cat." I'm like, "Let's go, man!"
Right, right.
So and it was fantastic. He realized that the thing that was driving him nuts about his cat was based in his inability to set boundaries in his life towards the family members. It was
Wow.
it was cool as heck.
Wow, that
So
is cool.
so the type of animal doesn't matter if there's that deep of a bond and there's in the openness to learning.
Right.
But dogs, you can you literally go places with them, and I assign tasks and exercises for people to do outside of the home.
Yeah. And that look, I mean, the look they give you. But yeah, can you think of one particular incidence in which you really saw healing with a person and with their dog?
Mhm. Yeah. So there's a retired special forces guy that I was doing some work with, and his dog died suddenly,
Mm.
and that dog was his world. That dog was like everything to him. He's got a family, but he didn't even want to go home most of the time because he didn't know how to talk to him, didn't want to be around him, and felt uncomfortable. But it was that dog, and he was just amazingly open. He was able to open, and I held this guy who's twice my size. He could crush me with his pinky.
Hmm.
I held this man while he cried,
Hmm.
and he was able to release more. It was more than just that thing, right? It was more than just that singular event. It was able to open him more in another way to where he could actually be open to doing further work and further introspection and healing.
Yeah. Yeah.
No matter where you are in your life, you're exactly where you're supposed to be.
Hmm.
And I say that with the biggest heart possible.
Hmm.
If you were supposed to be somewhere else, you would be. So um, knowing that you're where you're supposed to be and that you have other choices you can make, there are other options for you, but you have to step up and ask for help,
Right.
whatever that looks like for you. And there's no one way. The work I do isn't right for everybody,
Hmm.
and that's okay.
Hmm.
But I don't have to become best friends with everybody I work with, and in fact, I don't. But that's okay. I'll bring it, and if you bring it, then amazing things can happen.
Right.
So give yourself a little break and take some pressure off, and realize that hey, right now in this moment, you're absolutely fine.
Right. Yeah, I think that being present and grounded is something that I definitely have challenges with. I get so wrapped up in worrying about the what ifs that it's hard to really stay in the today. And this is what's good right now. And animals help us do that. What are the differences between working with someone via the web or through the internet and then having someone in person? Do you notice that there's any kind of difference at all?
It depends on the individual. And again, people are at all different places, right? If you've got 8 billion people on the planet, you've got 8 different paths to God, if you want to look at it that way. So every person is going to be a little different. I really, really love being in person with someone, but not everybody wants that. Not everybody's available for that, and that's okay. So I've seen incredible results with people who are really willing to get into their stuff, whether they're sitting in front of me or 10,000 miles away.
And I mean, gosh, can you think of all the I'm just so blown away by everything that we're able to do just because of platforms like Zoom, that people are able to meet and talk from everywhere. And it really, to me, it's really amazing. I mean, I didn't grow up with all of this. And so that's awesome that you're able to work with somebody so far away to be able to help them heal. So what is the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Okay. I can be reached directly by email. I do not mind that whatsoever. It's Michael, Michael, at dogsandmen.com. And there's no spaces in that.
Okay.
I literally just launched a new online platform as a community to make this work more accessible to people who aren't willing to jump into a coaching type situation, or I prefer to call it guiding actually. But yeah, so you can pay a monthly fee or an annual fee, and there's already guys in there from around the world, Spain, Italy, United States, Berlin, guys who they just want something different. And this is a more accessible way for a lot of people. So I created that and was very excited about that. And that just launched actually last week.
Oh, great. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And that is www.dogsandmen.com.
Okay. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you spending time and talking with the resilient animal. And thank you again, Michael Overlie from Dogs and Men.
Thank you so much. This is wonderful.
Oh, thank you.